Data integrity is one of those terms that you'll hear all the time from DBs or database administrators. You will hear it all the time and read it in the documentation out there. And so in this video, let's concentrate on understanding data integrity. Now, data integrity refers to the correctness, the consistency, and the uniqueness of the data stored in a table. Now, let's talk about what exactly that means. There's one thing that's really great about tables and databases, and that is they can store absolutely huge amounts of data. Now, there's also one not so great things about tables and databases, and that is they can store absolutely huge amounts of data. Now, that's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's great that we can shove all that data in there and store it, but managing it becomes just a bit of a challenge because when we're storing data in tables, we have to make sure we don't store duplicate data. Let's jump out into the Management Studio. If you remember, in a previous video, we did a little simple select statement. We selected every column from our person.person table. And we were somewhat surprised maybe to find out that we had 19,972 rows returned. Now, if I'm going to store this much data, I've got to make sure of one thing, that all of these 19,972 rows are unique to each other. Because it's very easy to spot duplicate data when I just have 10 rows in my table, right? I can add a row for Mary Johnson, and then I can add another row for Mary Johnson. I can say, oh, wait a minute, I already had one of those in there. However, when I've got 125,000 rows, and it's been a month since we did anything on Mary Johnson's data in there, it gets a little more difficult. Now, what if I have 125,000 rows and 36 of those rows are identical? We have 36 entries for Mary Johnson. All those rows are identical, and you update the data on 4 different occasions. So Mary Johnson changes something or something about her data updates, changes. We go in, make the changes, and 3 of the 36 rows got updated. Now, here's the question for you. Which row contains the most up-to-date and complete data? And the answer is, who knows? Probably none of them. It all depends on which one was updated when. It depends on how the query was written. It depends on humidity. It depends on all sorts of things. So we would have a data integrity problem in that table. Now, data integrity is handled at 2 main levels in a table. The first one at the row level is the primary key. And if you're familiar with a primary key, you know that the primary key is what keeps all the rows unique. Also, a column level data integrity provision is data types. And we're going to talk about data types in a separate video later on in the course. And constraints. Because we're going to limit what people can put into these columns. We're going to require them to put data in the proper form into our columns. Then we're going to use primary keys to ensure that we don't put a lot of duplicate data into our table. It's one thing to have a table with 125,000 rows. It's another thing to have a data table with 125,000 unique rows, and we don't have data integrity issues. So integrity on our data is just like integrity with a human. When we look at that data, we know it's true, we know it means what it says, we know we can trust it. So when you hear the term data integrity, that's what they're talking about. And the way data integrity is enforced is going to affect the way you write your queries and some of the errors that you get back when you try to run some of your queries. So we'll step through this step by step, get you up to speed on this, and make sure you can write the best queries possible.